What is up, Buffalo Fanatics? Z-Bot here with you, live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel on a Wednesday night. And that, of course, can only mean one thing. It is the smoke break. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m., will mark the 1 week mark until NFL football is officially back in 2025 as the Eagles and Cowboys kick off week 1. We are 9 days away almost from the minute. Ravens-Bills, Sunday Night Football. Oh my God, folks, we are this close. The finish line is in the distance. We are rounding the corner. Preseason done. 53-man roster locked in. Now we sit back and wait for the Buffalo Bills to kick things off and make yet another run at trying to win their first ever Super Bowl title. Tomorrow, by the way, 10 a.m. Eastern, I'm told, the Bills will debut their rivalries uniforms. I know you might have forgotten about that. They were announced months ago. Didn't get an update for forever. About a month ago, we did get an update. We will get the full reveal tomorrow. So the Bills will have a new uniform coming your way tomorrow. That might help ease the pain, so to speak, in terms of how much longer we have to wait. Not a long time, but you know how it goes. The shorter amount of time you have to wait, the longer it feels. So that should tide you over for a little bit. One more episode of Hard Knocks left as well, coming up Tuesday. Last night was the second to last episode. Plenty to talk about tonight on this episode of The Smoke Break. Good to have you in as always. 53-man roster locked in. We'll discuss that. Some new additions to the Buffalo Bills, or I don't think you can say new, some additions of familiar faces to the Buffalo Bills, including 2 players with the initials JP joining the roster on the practice squad. Let's start there. Jordan Poyer reunites with the Buffalo Bills. Who saw it coming? Well, maybe we all should have saw it coming. With the Bills adding Trey White in the offseason, the Bills adding Micah Hyde towards the end of last season, the Bills needing help in the safety room, the Bills valuing veteran leadership, the Bills valuing the guys that they had on their team that were staples for a considerable period of time. They value that. And they bring back Jordan Poyer to serve as a leader, right? To serve in that veteran leadership role and to be available should they need him. Same thing can be said with Jordan Phillips. But let's stick with Jordan Poyer for right now. Jordan Poyer added to the practice squad this past week. Brandon Beane spoke about this. He said he had been in constant contact with Jordan Poyer throughout the year here, really. So this might be a surprise to us, but certainly not a surprise to Brandon Beane. This feels like this is something that might have been in the works for a while. And he's back on the roster to help potentially be a mentor to Jordan Hancock, to help potentially be a mentor to Cole Bishop, and God willing, be available if needed. You know, you look back at the Micah Hyde situation last year. It was an addition that they made towards the end of the year. And that really felt like they were just adding him in to retire with the team and potentially come and win a championship with the team. He was already going to retire a Buffalo Bill, but to give him the opportunity to come back, be available in terms of just depth going into the postseason and then potentially win a ring with the team should they have done it. You look at this situation, though, this is a bit different because you have the Bills signing Jordan Poyer prior to the season. And it's also a bit different because if you talk about the biggest concern surrounding the Bills right now, it would be the secondary, and in particular, it would be the safety position. Jordan Poyer asked about his role on the team. He said he's looking forward to being a leader, right? Looking forward to being a role model, that veteran presence in the locker room. But he says he feels like he still has good ball that he's able to bring to this team and help them win through that. He said he can help this team win in a variety of different ways. He knows at the age in which he's at right now that his prime is behind him, but he still thinks he's bringing value to this team, not only in the locker room, but on the field if they should need it. The reality is here, everybody's hoping that the Bills will not need it. But when you're looking at the injuries this team has suffered on the defensive side of things for the last several seasons, including this offseason and this preseason, it doesn't hurt to have a guy like Jordan Poyer who's familiar with the team, familiar with the organization, knows the defense. It does not hurt to have that guy around. I feel like people are taking this signing and they look at it and they're hitting the panic button as a result. They're seeing Brandon Beane go and sign Jordan Poyer, and they're thinking, wow, the Bills are down so bad that they have to go sign Jordan Poyer, who said he was out on a boat with his daughter yesterday. They have to go sign Jordan Poyer off of his boat in order to have a fulfilled roster in terms of guys available to play in the secondary. Not necessarily how I look at it. I think Brandon Beane put it perfectly. If you have the opportunity to sign a guy like Jordan Poyer to the practice squad, why wouldn't you? When you have a guy who was as critical to the Bills' success as Poyer was during his time in Buffalo, when you have a guy that can serve as a role model for a very young secondary, and when you have a guy that could potentially step up and fill a role if it gets to that point, and you're confident in his ability to do so, at least to a certain extent, you're not going to want to trot Jordan Poyer out there for the entire season. A game or two comes up where you desperately need him. I think the Bills feel better about going with a guy that they know well, a guy who was incredible for this team, might not have the ability to be that type of player in this current day, but you still feel better about a guy like him as opposed to maybe another veteran off the street that the Bills have no familiarity with. I don't look at this signing as a sign of desperation. I look at it more as the Bills being a team that value having guys that have been in this locker room before and guys that they trust and know and are willing to lean back on in a variety of different roles, including being leaders, including being role models, and being those guys deep down the depth chart that can step up if they're needed. I don't look at this as a sign of desperation. I don't think we'll see Jordan Poyer out on the field. I just don't. You look at Micah Hyde's situation last year, and like I said, I know it's different. He was signed later in the year. But that to me always felt like you're signing Micah Hyde because of what he meant to this team. You're signing him because he's just a guy you'd rather have in a depth spot than maybe anybody else in terms of those circumstances. I'm looking at this situation awfully similarly, except it's just being done earlier than later. And when you have Cole Bishop, potentially Jordan Hancock having to step up in that role, it does not hurt to have a guy who is the best player at that position for this team over the last 2 decades or so. It just doesn't hurt to have. And what I love about Jordan Poyer is how much he loves the Buffalo Bills. I don't know if you guys have heard his comments surrounding his time in Miami. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but man, does it feel like Jordan Poyer wishes he had not gone to Miami a season ago. In fact, he seemed to infer to the media today that there were times in which he was thinking about wanting to call Brandon Beane during his time in Miami. He said it left a bad taste in his mouth. He said his time in Miami left a bad taste in his mouth, and that was not the way he wanted to end his career. If not for anything else, I'm happy that Jordan Poyer gets the opportunity once again to be a Buffalo Bill and in all likelihood, hang up the cleats with the Buffalo Bills. For as great of a player as Jordan Poyer was for this organization, a household name, part of the best safety tandem in the league during his time in Buffalo, you're happy for Jordan Poyer, the person, because I feel like he deserves to be able to retire with the Buffalo Bills. He deserves to get this practice squad role for a variety of different reasons. And it's not like it impacts the team significantly. It's a practice squad role. If you were to read that Jordan Poyer was immediately signed to the 53-man roster, yeah, maybe it's time to hit the panic button. Jordan Poyer moved off of a season ago, did not play well with Miami, did not like his time in Miami, and then a week before the season, you sign him expecting him to play immediately. Yeah, hit the panic button. You'd have every right to. But what they just signed him for, to me, I have absolutely no issue with it. Why wouldn't you want Jordan Poyer in the locker room if you could have him? And I feel like that was the sentiment that Brandon Beane shared. What I love about when they add these veterans back to the building, though, is you really do get a under the hood look at the difference between the Buffalo Bills and every other team in the league. As I mentioned, the comments that Jordan Poyer seemed to share about his time in Miami, you can just tell that the difference between an organization like the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills, it's night and day. It's apples to oranges. He goes out to Miami. He said it left a bad taste in his mouth, did not want to end his career like that. And I don't think he was talking about his play on the field. I think he was talking about his time with the organization. And we've heard nothing but just, no other way to put it, bad things surrounding the Miami Dolphins culture, their work ethic, the organization in general. Many people think Mike McDaniel is on the hot seat. Tyreek Hill, right? His comments during the offseason, and just his willingness to be fully bought in to the team. Tua having to essentially call him out at the podium about a month ago to the media. I mean, it's just night and day. What I love about the re-additions of old faces, familiar faces, is that they go and get a taste of what it's like outside of Buffalo. Then they come back to Buffalo and they re-emphasize just how good we have it as Bills fans. They re-emphasize just how good the Bills have been and currently are under Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. They have separated themselves in terms of how this franchise is looked at, not only by us fans, but most importantly, by the players themselves. They're in the organization. They reap the benefits. They leave and they don't know how good they had it. And even though they knew at the time, this is a great spot to be, I don't think you can truly realize how great it is until you leave, get a glimpse of what it's like elsewhere, and then come back. And Jordan Poyer, he put it bluntly, it was Buffalo or nowhere. Buffalo is home to him and so many of these guys. Trey White basically said the same thing. I think it's no secret that Trey White has shown his best football. Mind you, it is in practice. It is in the offseason. He's hurt right now. We'll talk about that in a second. I get all that, but I don't think it's crazy to think that the reason why Trey White has been reinvigorated, right, re-inspired, the fire's been lit underneath of him to allow him to make this roster and in all likelihood serve as a starting corner for at least some time for this team. It's because he's back where he belongs. It's back where he feels best. It's back where he wants to be. And I think that matters. And it certainly matters to Jordan Poyer. I love when the culture of the Buffalo Bills is re-emphasized to us. I talk about it all the time, and I talk about it so much because it matters so much. The Miami Dolphins, the reason why they're talked about the way that they are, the reason why their expectations are not even close to where it should be based on what that team was supposed to be just a couple of years ago, the way they were being propped up on a pedestal. I mean, don't forget, it wasn't all that long ago that many people thought Miami was going to take that next step and ascend past Buffalo. The Bills have owned the Dolphins since Josh Allen has become the quarterback of this team. And I just, it's never lost on me getting, pointed back to what this team has become during the Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane era. And I know this is a time right now, and it's a weird time where we're going into the season, and with the injuries, the roster management, I feel like I've been seeing a lot of animosity towards Beane and McDermott. And what else is new? That seems to happen every single time something doesn't go 100% according to plan. But when you see a guy like Jordan Poyer or Jordan Phillips or Tre'Davious White, when they take the podium and talk about their experiences outside of Buffalo, and then talk about what it was like to be in Buffalo and what it's like to be back in Buffalo, it's then that you truly realize how special of a place Buffalo is, how special of an organization the Buffalo Bills have become over the last decade or so. And it might not mean anything to anybody outside of this fan base, but do you really care if it matters to anybody outside of this fan base? We're the ones tuned in the most. And I think when you hear that stuff, you can tell for a 100% fact that it's not fluff, it's not BS, and these guys aren't just saying this from a PR perspective. They genuinely mean it. If the Bills were to have not extended the hand, if they were not to have extended their hand out to Jordan Poyer, I don't think he's playing this season. If they didn't extend their hand out to Jordan Phillips, I don't know if he's playing this season. Tre'Davious White, you could potentially say the same. The organization and what it has become is something that these guys value being a part of, want to be a part of. It feels like home to them. So if not for anything else, do we expect to see Jordan Phillips out on the field? Do we expect to see Jordan Poyer out on the field? Do you want to see him out on the field? The answer to all those questions, probably no. But does it really impact this team in a negative way? Does it impact you in a negative way? And really, what is the negative behind it? It is a practice squad role. And when you look at the youth in this secondary, in particular, when talking about Jordan Poyer, Maxwell Hairston, you can tell on Hard Knocks, by the way, Him and Trey White have an awesome relationship. Just in the most recent episode, they were in a meeting. They were going over film. And one of the coaches asked Maxwell Harrison, he goes, "What did you tell me the other day about what you noticed with Tre'Davious White?" And Maxwell Harrison said, "That guy's going on, what is it, year 10 in the league, and he still gets as frustrated as anybody after he makes a bad play." And the coach responded by saying, "Yeah, that's what makes the greats great, right?" That matters. You're watching Tre'Davious White and Maxwell Harrison. You're watching their relationship. Mind you, it's in a brief role. You don't see a ton of them on Hard Knocks, but I've noticed the moments that they show them, they already seem like they're buddies. That matters. You're drafted to this team in the first round, expected to be the future of the position. It certainly cannot hurt to have a former All-Pro at that position for that team be in the building to help bring you up to where you're supposed to be. It matters. Then you're looking at safety. Cole Bishop, it's time. It is time for Cole Bishop to ascend. It is time for him to grab the reins of the safety position and become a player in that secondary that this defense can rely on. It's time. It doesn't hurt to have a guy like Jordan Poyer standing around being a role model, being a guy who offers encouragement, offers advice to a player like Cole Bishop or a player like Jordan Hancock, drafted this past draft, deep into the draft. Doesn't hurt to have a guy like Jordan Poyer around to help him out as well. So I don't see the negatives in these signings. I think a lot of people look at it and they think this can't be good. This is a bad sign. If the Bills are constantly going after their own players who they've moved off of, they're bringing them back for seemingly no reason. Once again, if they were bringing them back for starting roles, and I think you could argue that about Trey White, luckily for us, he has looked really good during the offseason. There could be an argument there. I totally get that. But right now, a week before the season starts, I just don't think Jordan Phillips and Jordan Poyer are signed by Brandon Beane to be a significant impact on the field. They are signed to be around in the off chance, in the very desperate moment in which they might be needed. But on top of that, they're signed to be almost pseudo coaches to the future of the back end of this defense, the future of this secondary. And who doesn't love Jordan Poyer? Who doesn't love Micah Hyde? Who doesn't love Tre'Davious White? So happy for Jordan Poyer, happy to have him back. And, I'm rooting for him in terms of just being an asset to this team. And he kind of touched on that. He wants to be an outlet for these guys. I think he understands the role. I think he understands why he was brought back in. And he wants to be here, by the way. I thought it was an interesting point that Poyer had made. He said that he just recently had a discussion with Micah Hyde. He called him a couple of days ago. They were talking. And Micah Hyde told him it's really humbling, right? It's really humbling to be out on that practice field and you're not going out there with the ones. You're not going out there with the twos. You're really not going out there much at all. You're in an observatory role. He said it's very humbling. But I think it goes to show you just how much he wants to be a part of that team. Because you know what you're signing up for, essentially. You're signing up to be humbled. You're signing up to be in that observatory role. You're signing up in the all likelihood that your services are not going to be needed. You're ready to go if they are. You think you have it within you to be able to step up should you be needed. But I think it tells you just how much you want to be a part of the organization when you're willing to step up into a role like this. And, Brandon Beane, he talked about this. He said that he told these guys to call him, keep in touch. And they did. Both Jordan Phillips and Jordan Poyer frequently called Brandon Beane throughout the offseason, checking in, making sure if they needed to stay healthy or not, stay, in shape or not, to be able to get ready to go should that phone call come. And it did for both those players. So Jordan Poyer back. Once again, I feel like you see this move and it's like, oh my God. Who else are we going to be bringing back? Is Eric Moles going to be vying for the 7th wide receiver spot, or can Steve Tasker come and fill in on special teams if needed? I don't see it that way. The practice squad is there for a reason, to have guys that you do not want to have to call upon, but they're there should you have to. And I get it from Brandon Beane's perspective. If you can have Jordan Poyer on the roster, why wouldn't you? Let's talk about Jordan Phillips. This was a bit confusing Because initially, it seemed as though the word surrounding Jordan Phillips was that he was being signed to the 53-man roster immediately. Based on what we were hearing during that signing just a couple of days ago, we were hearing that allegedly Jordan Phillips was not only being signed to the Bills, he was being signed to the 53-man roster. That I understand being somewhat concerned about. Actually, I would understand being fully concerned about that. Why? You just invested how much into this defensive front? Deion Walker has looked incredible during the preseason. TJ Sanders looking good. You're hoping you get the most out of Landon Jackson, right? Joey Bosa really looking good this offseason, just hoping he stays healthy. You're confident in Greg Rousseau. You're confident in Ed Oliver. You like what you have rotationally from AJ Epinesa. Why would you go out and sign Jordan Phillips yet again to the 53-man roster? That was when it was kind of like, why? What are we doing here? What's the reasoning behind this? And the reason why I understand the questioning is because it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. You just add all of these new guys. It feels like it's a new era for the Buffalo Bills defensive front. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to add a guy off the street. I mean, he said it himself. He was hanging out. He's been in dad mode. He's been hanging out with his 3 kids. You're going to add a guy to the 53-man roster, hanging out with the kids just because, even after you've added all of these guys to that area of the field? Well, it made a lot more sense when we found out that Jordan Phillips was being signed to the practice squad. And, you know, like Sword Brothers saying here, it's just quality depth. Why not? I mean, to those who just get immediately infuriated by signing veterans and familiar faces, what would you rather them do? Just pick up somebody that they have no familiarity with that will probably be as much of an impact as the guys that they're currently adding? The benefit here is that you have relationship with these guys. You know these guys. You know what they bring to the table. And above all of that, they're also being able to bring the veteran presence to the team that's unlike what any other veteran could bring that wasn't already a former Buffalo Bill. You know the defense extremely well. You know the area. You know the team. You know the locker room. You saw Jordan Poyer head into the locker room today. I don't know if you saw the video of Deion Dawkins seeing him for the first time. I mean, Deion Dawkins was like a kid in a candy shop. Why not have these guys around? They're all buddies. They're all best buds. Jordan Poyer said even during his time in Miami, he was still checking in on what was going on in Buffalo because those are his teammates. Those are his guys, right? I mean, they all care for each other. And once again, Jordan Phillips, when he was being interviewed by the media today, what do you know? He has the same sentiment that Jordan Poyer had, where it was Buffalo or nowhere. And why Buffalo or nowhere? Well, it's because for a guy like Jordan Phillips, he literally said this. Jordan Phillips said, you go to other teams, they're not having fun. It's just all football. They don't really have those friendships. They don't really have those relationships off the field. And when you're playing a game that is so demanding and so grueling as the NFL is, you need to have that relief. You need to have guys you're working with that you can have relationships with, that you can be friends off the field with, because it makes everything better. It might not show up on the stat sheet, but when you truly love the guy next to you, when you're getting dinner with the guy next to you, hanging out on the weekends, when you are a true family on and off the field, it translates into better football. And Jordan Phillips, just like Jordan Poyer, he said it was Buffalo or nowhere. He said you go around the league, you go to other teams, and it's just not this. It's just not Buffalo. These guys are actually what they seem to be to us. These guys are truly a family. And I don't know what else you'd have to see in order to not, like, you have to believe it at this point. I don't think that you could get any more evidence to that point. A lot of people think it's just BS. A lot of people think, oh, it's whatever. Oh, they're just doing it for the camera. Or who cares about culture? No. It absolutely matters. How many times do you have to hear these guys come in to the team, come to the podium, and say what they say? I mean, it's time and time again. This is why at every turn, somebody will take a chance to just dump on McDermott or dump on Bean. They're discounting extremely the culture that has been built within this organization. And I feel like so many people get they think I'm beating a dead horse and they just get sick and tired of me bringing it up. Culture hasn't won us a ring, Culture hasn't gotten us the 1 seed. Well, what would the Bills be currently if the culture wasn't in place? Because I'm looking at Miami. You got Tyreek Hill. You got Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane. You were hoping you had something in Tua. You hire the best offensive mind arguably in the league at head coach. And what has that resulted in? You look at the Cincinnati Bengals, the best offense in the league, the best wide receiver tandem in the league. Yes, they made a Super Bowl. They still have as many rings with Joe Burrow as Josh Allen has with the Bills. And look at what's happened there, right? Just look. Look around. Look at what the Browns got going on. The Jets. It's not all that long ago that the Bills were far closer to the Browns and the Jets of the world than they were to the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs of the world. It absolutely matters. What would the Buffalo Bills look like in 2025, even with Josh Allen, if it weren't for what has been built within the walls of that facility? It absolutely matters. And I just love when it's reemphasized by these guys. I really do. Because it just gives you more and more evidence. And people, all they want to look at is the trophy case. I'm telling you right now, the Bills have gotten to the point where they've been at least vying for an opportunity to put something in that trophy case, in large part because of what has been built by this organization. Is Josh Allen the vast majority? Yes. Would the Bills still be a playoff contender, still be a huge threat in this league simply because of Josh Allen? Yes, but you can't tell me there hasn't been, and I don't care if it's even marginal, it still matters. The difference between a culture in Buffalo and a culture in a variety of these other teams throughout the league, it matters. Whether it's just a game or not, it still matters more than those teams who have not been able to put that together. And every time you add one of these guys, Shaq Thompson gets added. He talks about his time in Carolina with McDermott. Talks about what he's been able to notice when he comes into the building. I go back to what Cole Beasley said when he was signed. Coming from Dallas, who has billion-dollar facilities and all the money in the world out in Arlington, and talking about what it was like in Buffalo compared to what should be leaps and bounds better than Buffalo. You just have countless examples. And I think it's great because in the times in which you want to just throw your hands up and say, I'm done with Bean, I'm done with McDermott, I'm just done with this, it's time to move on, you got to look at what has happened up until this point. And nobody gets more frustrated than me. You all know the debacle that was the AFC Championship live stream. I'm breaking down post game, right? Because of how much this has just ravaged me, right? It matters, and nobody wants it more than me. And I know you guys are at the equivalent. I know you guys are right there with me, but you can't just because you haven't gotten to the pinnacle doesn't mean you have to completely discount everything else that has happened in the meantime. And it's these moments when you add Poyer, you add Hyde, that I think that really starts to show itself yet again. So let's talk about the 53-man roster. Those two players, by the way, Jordan Poyer and Jordan Phillips, not on the 53. They are on the practice squad. Let's talk about that practice squad once again real quick. In addition to those two guys, the Buffalo Bills did not lose anybody, and that's a great thing. I see some people, they're like, well, if the Bills don't lose anybody on their practice squad, it can't mean their depth's all that good. Well, wouldn't you rather have the guys that are on this practice squad? I sure would. I thought Frank Gore Jr. was going to be scooped up instantaneously, was stunned that he didn't end up making it, right? Really shocked. Jimmy Charlo. What more could that guy have shown in 2 weeks on the team than what Jimmy Charlo showed? I was so glad Hard Knocks was able to shine a light on his story and his work ethic. It's what the league's all about. Going from nothing to something. That guy went from absolutely nothing to being on the practice squad. It might not mean much to anybody watching the league. Who cares about the practice squad? That's a guy that earned it. He's not just being put on the practice squad for his health. That's a guy that earned it. You saw on Hard Knocks, they have him out there playing nickel the entire game. He doesn't even know what's going on, but he doesn't care. He steps up. He does what he's told. He's a football player. And I was kind of shocked he didn't get scooped up because I thought he showed some great stuff on tape in terms of his special teams ability, right? So you look at the practice squad here, by the way. Once again, nobody scooped up. This was a bit shocked. I was really shocked that Frank Gore Jr. didn't get picked up. I believe he was the only player in the entire preseason to have 100 yards rushing and 100 yards receiving, I think it was. Another exceptional preseason for Frank Gore Jr. He had a great one last year. I thought at this point he was going to get scooped up. He's just a victim of circumstance right now. The Bills' running back room is just too good. You obviously just extend James Cook, one of the best running backs in the league. You really like what you have in Ray Davis right behind him. Ty Johnson, as good as it gets in that third down role. And then, of course, Reggie Gilliam backing things up at the fullback position. You have no room for a guy like Frank Gore Jr. But I figured there'd be other teams in the league that would. He didn't get scooped up. How about Shane Buechele earning the third-string quarterback role, earning the practice squad quarterback role? The Bills move off of Mike White. You can't tell me that third preseason game didn't weigh heavily on this decision. Look, say what you want. Preseason against the third strings. It's the third game. Nobody cares. That guy balled out. I mean, if he would have went out there and laid a dud, Shane Buechele would not be on your screen right now. I don't think he'd be on the practice squad. I just don't. I think they would have moved off of him like they did with Mike White. He went out there and showed something. The dude balled out. He looked really damn good. You're not going to want to see Shane Buechele out there. I mean, that would mean that we are in a spot that we couldn't even fathom. But I think he earned it. I thought Mike White had a good preseason and a good offseason. I shouldn't say a good preseason. It was an okay preseason. It wasn't great. But Shane Buechele, you got to give him credit. I don't think a lot of people had him penned in to earn that third role at the beginning of the offseason here. And he went ahead and did it. And I think that preseason week 3 game really helped him out. We saw some good from Gosnell this offseason. He's on the practice squad. Same with Wilkerson there. Saw a couple of flashes from them. They remain on the practice squad. Dane Jackson, maybe a surprise cut. I think that there was a moment in time where you could have argued, hey, is Dane Jackson going to be starting at corner here with Tre'Davious White hurt, Maxwell Hairston hurt? Like, is that going to happen here? It's not going to happen, at least for right now. You got Dane Jackson cut. He's still on the practice squad. It looks like that's going to be an Ingram role to start the year, depending on the Trey White situation. We'll talk about that once again in a second. But these are your practice squad players. Bills do not lose anybody on that practice squad. And I think you got some names in there that you're happy to keep around. I know for me, certainly happy to have Frank Gore Jr. around. I really thought we were going to lose him. So I don't know. Unfortunately, he'll never probably get the opportunity, but I feel better knowing that if, God willing, it got to the point where the Bills had to dip into the practice squad for running back. Does it get much better at the position in terms of practice squad players than Frank Gore Jr.? So let's talk about the guys who did make the 53-man roster. Been on it for a couple of weeks now, and it came to fruition. Tyrell Shavers, welcome to the Buffalo Bills. Tyrell Shavers makes the 53-man roster, and it was earned, not given. This guy, a season ago, he showed he had the capabilities. It did not end up happening for him last year. Gets another crack this year in a wide receiver room that was, loaded with guys competing for the job. Tons of guys competing for this role that Shavers ends up winning out. Tyrell Shavers could not have done more with the opportunities given to him during this preseason, and that has to count. That has to matter. These guys are given limited opportunities. What do you do with them? And all Tyrell Shavers did, in my opinion, was showcase himself as potentially the best offensive player on this team during the 3 preseason games. Every single game he made a play, and he put the exclamation point on it with the best catch of the entire preseason against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that beautiful one-handed catch for a touchdown. The guy has absolutely earned it. This is not a feel-good story. This is not a, hey, you did good last year, you did good this year, here's your reward. That's not how it works. This guy earned the role, and I'm excited to see what he's got. We've seen what he's been able to showcase without Josh Allen throwing him the football. What could it potentially look like with 17 slinging him the ball? What is going to be the approach with Tyrell Shavers? How are they going to work him in? What's that going to look like? I've mentioned it before. When I look at him, I see a full-bodied wide receiver. I see the ability to separate. I see the ability to catch the ball no matter where it is. And I see Real good route running ability for a guy that was on the cusp of making a roster. He's got the size. I think he's got the overall attributes that you're excited about for a guy that you weren't anticipating being on this roster, who has absolutely earned it. So give Tyrell Shavers credit. That's got to feel so good for a guy like that, right? To know you're this close. It's a Super Bowl roster. You understand if it doesn't work out. I was close last year. It's going to be a real uphill battle to try to do it again this year and actually make it. It ended up happening for him. So big time congrats to Tyrell Shavers. And once again, earned, not given. Really excited to see what he brings to the table. Maxwell Hairston, of course, on the roster, but will start the season on IR. So this was a decision, of course, that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott had to weigh heavily. It wasn't locked in even a few days ago. They were still sort of weighing out what they were going to do with Maxwell Hairston. They decide to pull the trigger. They decide to put Maxwell Hairston on the IR, which will sideline him for at least the first 4 games of the season. Now, Brandon Beane did mention that they are hopeful that Maxwell Hairston should be able to practice and get prepared for that Week 5 game. He didn't put it in pen. He didn't etch it in stone, but he seemed confident that at least he should be making strides towards being able to get back on the field once he is off of IR. I know what you're thinking. First round draft pick, and he's on IR before the season starts. This is terrible, especially at a position where we desperately need the talent. No, it's not ideal. No, it's not great. But I think in terms of the circumstances, guy gets hurt. You have 2 choices. Try and rush him back out on the field or put him on IR and take the pressure off of him. This is why I think putting Maxwell Hairston on the IR was the right move. Whether or not it was a necessity, the reason why I think it's a right move is because you have a first-round draft pick that is expected to be the future of the cornerback position. The Bills just invested a first-round draft pick on him after moving off of a former first-round draft pick at the same position. The stakes are high. Brandon Beane knows he's got to hit on Maxwell Hairston because he knows with Kyer Elam it was a swing and a miss. This has to land, and Hairston knows it. Hairston puts out the fastest 40 time in the combine. He knows eyes are going to be on him. You have to imagine a guy looking to prove himself, looking to show the fan base, hey, nothing to worry about at corner. I'm here, right? 31 is in the building. You have to factor that in. When you do factor that in, what is likely to happen with a guy facing an injury going into the year? Well, he's going to try his damnedest to get back on the field as soon as he can, and that might not be the best move. If you're a veteran, you're more likely to say, hey, listen, I've been through this before. I'm just not ready to go. I'm not feeling it. Yeah, I could test it. Yeah, maybe I could rush back a week or 2 early, but man, I don't think it's a good idea. When you're a rookie, you're chomping at the bit. You are ready to get out there. You want to do whatever it takes to go improve yourself, especially a first-round draft pick. This is why I think putting him on the IR is the right move. It takes the pressure off of Maxwell Hairston. He doesn't have to worry about forcing himself back before he's actually ready to go. I think if you didn't put him on IR, whether or not the training staff signs off on him, it's irrelevant because I think that it could just stunt his progress. I think that this gives him a clean slate and allows the pressure to come off of his shoulders, and it allows him to kind of clear his mind and focus simply on getting healthy for a full month as opposed to every single week saying, maybe I'll get healthy this week and I can get out there for the Jets game or the Dolphins game or the Saints game. Here's the other reality too about that, right? Yeah, maybe he's ready for Week 5. I mean, if I got to eat crow after this, maybe I will. But Week 5, you head into Week 5 and you're going against New England. Yeah, you'd love to have them out there on a Sunday night football game. But I think the Buffalo Bills have shown us that they have the capabilities of beating the New England Patriots without a Maxwell Hairston. I certainly know they have the capabilities of beating a Falcons team and a Panthers team without Maxwell Hairston. Where you're really going to want them is against the Kansas City Chiefs. Ideally, you would have loved to have had them against the Ravens. That's been out of the question for a while now. But you look at the Kansas City Chiefs game. Right now, it's August 27th. That wouldn't require him to be back until November 2nd. I know the injuries right now, it seems like doomsday in Buffalo. And I don't want to eat crow. I will if I have to, but I'm confident in Josh Allen. And I'm confident in these Buffalo Bills, who currently have the highest over-under win total, are currently favored to win every single game this upcoming season, currently have one of the best odds to win the Super Bowl, and are a landslide in terms of being a favorite to win this division. I think the Buffalo Bills, despite the injuries they currently have, can beat the Jets, the Dolphins, the Saints, the Patriots, the Falcons, the Panthers. I'm not going to hit the panic button if the Bills go out and lose to the Ravens week 1, injuries or not. The Bills got destroyed, absolutely dismantled on primetime television against the Baltimore Ravens a season ago. And what happened after that? They lost just a handful, not even a handful. They lost literally how many more games? 2, 3 legitimate more games after that. It was by far the worst performance they showcased the entire season. And what do you know? They beat them when it mattered most at home in the divisional round. Not going to panic on that. The Bills, luckily for them, with these injuries, I think that they are set up to be able to win games even without having the guys that you would ideally like to have out there. Now, I'm not sitting here saying, oh, the Bills can just mail it in against these guys. I'm just saying that if you were going to have this situation rear its ugly head, you'd rather have it now than I think towards the middle to end of the season, where you have, within a few week period here, Chiefs, Bucks, Texans, Steelers, Bengals, Eagles, right? I think you'd much rather have this playing out right now with the schedule the Bills have in the beginning. Now, let's talk about Tre'Davious White. This is an odd situation. Nobody seems to know what's going on with Tre'Davious White. Brandon Beane was asked about a timetable for Tre'Davious White yet again today. Did not have one. We have really been given no information about the Tre'Davious White injury. We don't know the extent in which the injury is. We really don't even know what the injury is. We don't know a timetable on his return. Brandon Beane did say he would not rule him out to be available for week 1. He would not rule him out, but he doesn't know. He doesn't know, and nobody seems to know. I don't know if they're keeping this under wraps themselves or if they genuinely do not know about the extent of the injury. Brandon Beane did say it's nothing to the point of a season ender. And I think that you don't cut Dane Jackson in all likelihood if you thought that Tre'Davious White was going to miss a significant amount of time. I think that the Tre'Davious White injury is something we're certainly going to have to monitor because it just seems like it's very much up in the air. The way I look at it right now, I don't know how I feel about him being ready for week 1. I don't know how you guys feel. You can let me know in the comments. But doesn't it sort of seem right now like it's leaning more towards a no than a yes? And maybe you want it to be more of a no than a yes. Because if it's really this close, roughly a week out, is he going to be 100%? Is he going to be fully ready to go against one of the best rosters in the NFL in the Baltimore Ravens? I'm not entirely sure, right? So could this be a spot where Jamarcus Ingram has to step up? Very well could be. Maybe a Dorian Strong. I would lean Jamarcus Ingram right now is probably the guy that would have to step up should Tre'Davious White not be ready. The other interesting aspect of that cornerback room right now, Christian Benford hasn't practiced the last couple of days, didn't practice today. No one knows what's going on there. Apparently it was rest. There's no documented injury for Christian Benford. I'll tell you right now, if Christian Benford isn't ready to go, if Christian Benford is hurt and we don't know about it, then you're probably gonna see me saying, "Yep, time to get awfully worried about what's going on in the secondary." You're not feeling great about it right now, but I think that with the schedule and with the ability to get these guys back on the field that are hurt, I think that there's going to be time allotted to be able to get back to where we want this secondary to be. Christian Benford gone, though, that's a whole different ballgame. I don't know what you're doing at that point if he's not ready. And I'm not sitting here saying he isn't going to be ready, but he hasn't practiced the last couple of sessions. It's apparently been rest, but he was in street clothes today. There seems to be no documentation surrounding why he was in street clothes. Let's just cross our fingers and say, he must just need the rest. Give him the rest if he needs it, because Christian Benford is going to have to be heavily relied upon, at least in week 1, but really throughout the full duration of the offseason. That is one of those guys that you fully trust on this defense, and one of those guys you are really relying on to help this defense take a step forward this upcoming season. Caroline Belle has entered the building, and she has just entered the third trimester on Monday. You want to give everybody an update?
Bump date.
So here is the baby bot bump. You want to show it off?
No.
Oh, you don't want to show it off? Okay. I don't want to be invasive.
Yeah.
You were taking off the coat, so I figured you were letting it in.
Yeah, I'm getting bigger.
Well, you're getting bigger, and you're glowing though. You're looking great. Look at her. So we're 29 weeks.
Yep.
So next week's going to mark the 30-week mark, and you all know that 40 weeks is the ultimate goal. That's the bullseye.
Yep.
So that means we're roughly 10 weeks away from the baby bot bump turning into the baby bot.
No.
And that's crazy. And that is crazy.
November 10th.
What'd you bring me? Some Chinese food?
Yeah, baby.
Whoa.
Free.
GF. Look at that.
Extra $1.
Extra $1 for the GF. It always is. They always upcharge on the GF, which is funny because you get a worse tasting product, roughly a worse quality product, depending on what you're getting, yet you got to pay more for it, you know? Seeing all the comments, by the way, thanks so much, as always, for the love and support. We will keep you updated all along the way, but 29 weeks is what we just hit, approaching in on the 30-week mark on Labor Day this upcoming week here. And knock on wood, so far, so good. Just trying to ride out the home stretch here until Baby Bot is delivered, right? Slick Crook saying week 40 is right around the corner. It really is. Brew Crew saying congrats. PBC, congrats.
Thank you.
Yep. Nick 716, congrats. Drippy Z, Mike D Buffalo, the whole gang. We really appreciate it, guys, and we can't wait to keep you updated and announce Baby Bot to the world when that time comes. PBC's giving some advice, by the way, Caroline. None of us parents know shit. Learn as you go. I think that's going to be our strategy anyways.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Caroline says, thank you, PBC. I think that's the approach we're going to go with because I already know I don't know shit. And the only way I'm going to know shit is going through it. And I'm about to be going through it in roughly 10 weeks. Yeah, so I'm not worried about Christian Benford. I don't know why he hasn't practiced, but I feel like we would have been told. I mean, we've gotten updates on all the other injuries. Why would they not say anything? Just if he needs a couple of days, give him a couple of days. The guy is going to be one of the biggest cornerstones of this entire team, not even just the defense, one of the biggest cornerstones of the entire team this upcoming season. You need a couple of days, whatever. Give him a couple of days. Back to the Tre'Davious White thing, though. It is awfully interesting. I can't lie. My eyebrows have been raised on it. We just don't know anything. We're 9 days out here. Now, Brandon Bean did say we will get our first injury report a week from today, next Wednesday, so we'll know soon enough. You guys can let me know. I mean, do you think that he's going to be starting week 1? If not, do you think it's going to be Ingram? Do you think it's going to be Strong? I mean, what is your mindset there? You'd really love for it to be Tre'Davious White. My whole thought process is if it's really this close right now and we don't know anything 9 days out, is he really going to be ready to go whether they say he is or not? Once again, I don't want to bake in this idea that the Bills are going to be just gifted wins the first month and a half here. They're not going to be handed W after W in a box with a bow and a ribbon on the top. I'm not saying that, but I mean, come on. I need to hear the argument, even with the injuries, as to how the Bills are going to be losing to the Jets, Dolphins, Saints, Patriots, Falcons, Panthers. Maybe you throw in an argument for the Patriots. They'll be better. Mike Vrabel will have this team ready. Drake May takes that next step. They've improved in a multitude of different categories. All right, I'll hear it out. But, it's Sunday Night Football in Buffalo. Is Drake May going into that environment and winning? My money's on probably not. The Bills at home, where they rarely lose, prime time, where Josh Allen always seems to ascend. I'm not saying... I wouldn't put money on it is the best way I can put it. Maybe you drop a game you don't expect. Luckily, the Bills last year, they avoided that. The Bills didn't lose a game last year where they were a surefire, where you had a surefire victory going into the game and they wound up blowing it. They played terrible against Baltimore. They lost. Josh Allen had the worst game he's had in a couple of years, really, against the Houston Texans. They were still a play away from winning that game, but they lost. Josh Allen had one of the best performances of the entire 2025 season. They lost to the Rams. And then the backups play the full duration of the football game and lose to the New England Patriots in week 4. I mean, that was the season. They never lost a game that they shouldn't have. Maybe they do this year. Once again, I'm not going to hit the panic button. We have gotten to the point, and mind you, yeah, am I going to be a hypocrite when the Bills say that, let's just talk hypothetical here. Am I going to be a hypocrite if Justin Fields and the Jets beat the Bills week 2 and I come on here bitching up a storm, just screaming and yelling? Am I going to be a hypocrite? Yeah, probably. But I need to go back to this point that I'm about to make, and I've made it throughout the offseason. This team has gotten to the point where I cannot convince myself of anything other than them winning this division and being a top 4 seed minimum. This team, time and time again, has proved they are going to be in contention for the Super Bowl. What matters the most is going to be the health of this team heading into mid-January and hopefully February. It's not going to matter dropping a game that they shouldn't. It's not going to matter if they lose one of these highly contested grudge match football games like a Ravens game, a Chiefs game, a Texans game. What's going to matter? Winning this division and getting into the postseason healthy. And I know it's tough to think that way, but what else do you need to see from this team? They've gone on runs being as good of a team as they were last year. They've gone on runs where they really were a couple of moments away from missing the playoffs 2 seasons ago. They've shown you both ways. At the end of the day, they need to get into the dance, and once they get into the dance, they need to be healthy at the dance. That's what's going to matter the most. You're going to have Harrison and Trey White healthy at the dance. You're going to have Joey Bosa healthy, Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard. Obviously, the offense, that goes without saying. I feel like we never talk about the offense's health because it's never really been an issue, knock on wood. But that's what's going to matter. Speaking of the offensive health, a positive note in the storm of negativity surrounding the injuries, it's felt like throughout the offseason. Khalil Shakir back at practice today. That is great. When Khalil Shakir first got hurt, it was seeming like it was going to be a situation where we were going to come up right against game 1 and his availability for that game. I don't know if we were certain if he was going to be able to be fully ready to go for that game or start practicing early enough to get his legs underneath of him. Back at practice 9 days prior to the game. That is a great sign. Khalil Shakir is Josh Allen's best asset on the entire football team. Most reliable, most proven. They need him, and they need a fully healthy, fully loaded Khalil Shakir. Great to see him back at practice over a week before the start of the game. Khalil Shakir, one of the most underrated players in the NFL. You lose him, you don't have him. This is a different offense. This is Josh Allen's guy. Yes, you are anticipating and hoping and expecting Keon Coleman is going to elevate. Dalton Kincaid is going to elevate. Josh Palmer is going to be something for this team. Maybe Tyrell Shavers has more of an impact than you could ever imagine for a guy just making the roster this offseason. Maybe you're going to get a surprise out of Curtis Samuel or Elijah Moore, right? But it's all going to rely upon the reliability of Josh Allen's best weapon, and that is Khalil Shakir. You need that guy, and it's great to see that he's healthy. Hopefully, he stays healthy. That was the one big concern on offense, and as of right now, hopefully not going to be a concern. Hopefully that continues to trend upward for Khalil Shakir, and that health is maintained throughout the season. But you needed him week 1. I know it's felt like we were going to have him, but how healthy was he going to be? I think it's a really good sign to see him back over a week out before the game. Richie coming in. Richie saying, Z-Bot, my boy, you know what's next? Rivalry uniforms tomorrow. You already know it. Got my monkey moving. Keep up the great work, brother. Oh, you know I love me a new uniform, a new helmet, new merch. That's coming our way tomorrow. Be on the lookout. Buffalo Bills Rivalries uniform making their debut tomorrow. The rumor is 10 a.m., so be locked in on Twitter. 8 uniforms being debuted across the NFC East and the AFC East and the NFC West. So be on the lookout. Cannot wait to see what the Bills looks like. It's supposed to be it's supposed to be implementing a theme of ice and winter and like a frozen blue and white and silver. I can't wait to see what it looks like. Hopefully they knock it out of the park. And we'll see those uniforms in the Week 5 matchup, Sunday Night Football against the New England Patriots in Buffalo. What else was I thinking about here? Yeah, but no, in terms of the secondary, right? Valid concerns right now. I mean, you 100% get it. Trey White hurt, Maxwell Hairston on IR. You don't know what to think about the safety position. Cole Bishop, it looks like he's nearing towards the ability to become the starter for the team at safety alongside Taylor Rapp. Do I think it still could potentially be Damar Hamlin week 1? I do. I don't know if in Sean McDermott's mind, Cole Bishop has had enough reps or has shown enough this offseason to earn that role in week 1. But inevitably, he's going to have that role at some point. I mean, that's just a given. We all know it. But when is the question? And he's been hurt, a ton. Hurt all throughout the year. Last year was around towards the end of the year, but then unfortunately hurt again this offseason. Hasn't gotten as many reps as you'd like. And for a role that is as pivotal as the safety position, in a role in which you invested a second-round draft pick last year, you're dying to see what you have in Cole Bishop in full capacity. He's been out there. He just hasn't been out there a lot. When is he going to get on the field? That's the question, not a matter of if. Wouldn't shock me if we saw a Damar Hamlin start week 1. It's just a matter of time for Cole Bishop. Time will tell here over the next week whether or not he's done enough to prove to McDermott that he's earned that role for week 1. But I understand the concern, right? You don't know what you have in Cole Bishop just yet. You don't know when he's going to be out there either. Maxwell Hairston on IR, Tre'Davious White hurt. I'm not concerned about it right now, but Christian Benford hasn't practiced the last couple of days. I get all of it. But once again, I think that this team needs to be healthy when it matters most, and that's at the end of the season. And hopefully they get there. I think the Bills can get by early on in the year, working through these injuries that they've sustained early in the offseason, rather. Here's what it all comes down to. The injuries now, injuries whenever, right? It's always come down to the Bills' health, regardless of the injuries that they currently have. My mindset on this hasn't really changed. It's always been about one thing. Can the Bills be healthy going into the postseason? My mindset hasn't changed on that at all. Banged up right now, not ideal. But will they and can they be healthy going into the postseason? That is what matters most for this team because they are going to be in the postseason. It's a matter of the seeding. Now, would you love to have a fully healthy team throughout the year to give this team the best chance at a 1 seed, which they haven't had? And based on this schedule and based on the other teams they're competing with schedule, I think this is their best opportunity to get that 1 seed. And boy, you couldn't think of a better year to get it. The last year in the Ralph, you could not go out in a more poetic fashion, right? You really couldn't. You'd love to have it, but the Bills are still going to be able to compete and go the distance or vie to go the distance without having it. I mean, you would absolutely love to have it, but if you had to choose between having the 1 seed and sacrificing health or sacrificing the 1 seed and having the health, I think I'd probably lean towards the health. The Bills have dominated, absolutely eviscerated teams in the wild card round. Nobody wants the 1 seed more than me. I've talked about it time and time again, how much I do think it matters. But what matters more than anything is the health of this team, and in particular, the health of this defense. And we've seen them come up short because of guys missing that they absolutely had to have out on the field in order to put their best foot forward on that side of the football. So regardless of what's happening now, my mindset hasn't changed. It's always been the same. This team is coming off their 5th consecutive AFC East title. They are heavily favored to make it 6 in a row. Will they be healthy after winning that title and going into the postseason? So not a whole lot has changed for me in that regard. You're just hoping that these guys can get back to full capacity sooner than later. And it's just a matter of time. Maxwell Hairston will be ready to go at some point, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. Tre'Davious White will keep an ear to the ground. We'll find out next week what's going on there. And I'm hoping he's healthy, and I'm hoping he's ready to go week 1. If I had to lean towards one way or the other, it feels like right now he might not be ready, just based on the I don't know. It's just the situation seems so vague. Everything that's being talked about in terms of his current situation is just so ominous. You just don't really know what is going on. I tend to lean towards, that can't be great in these spots, because if it was great, I think you'd be told as much. But then again, competitive advantage, I don't know if this is the mindset that they have, but maybe they're trying to convince Harbaugh and the Ravens that they're going to be trotting out a deep depth piece at corner just to have Tre'Davious White pop up on the ready to go list a week from today. So we shall see. But it's here, folks. I mean, a week from tomorrow night, the season starts off. 9 days from today. 9 days from literally right now, we will be in the first quarter of Bills Ravens. Once again, tomorrow morning, Rivalries uniforms make their debut. Be on the lookout. That'll be awesome. Final episode of Hard Knocks comes around Tuesday. We'll watch the cuts that just happened go down. We got to follow some of those guys this past episode, right? Jimmy Charlo was featured a bunch, which was cool. I thought it was cool that you got the perspective of those guys that weren't going to make the team. We'll see what happens with them next week. But all those guys brought back to the practice squad. So there's somewhat of a happy ending there to all those stories. But anyway, that's going to do it for the 53-man recap. Jordan Poyer back in the building. Jordan Phillips back in the building. And really, this is the last episode recapping anything to do with the offseason, and that is a great feeling. Heading out West Coast this weekend to the Gorge for the Labor Day weekend. Cannot wait, and I hope you and your family have a terrific Labor Day weekend. Enjoy it, rest up, and gear up, and just enjoy the last weekend without football, or NFL football, that is, because you are going to be dialed in until February, starting next weekend. But hey, enjoy the Saturday slate of college football. That's no joke. That is a killer week one schedule, including a highly anticipated showdown between Arch Manning and the Longhorns going against the reigning champion Ohio State Buckeyes. So that'll kind of whet your appetite a bit for NFL football coming up next week. But enjoy the Labor Day weekend, and I'll be back with you next week to preview Bills Ravens. I can't believe I'm saying it, but we're here. Absolutely love it. On your way out the door, like button if you could, subscribe button if you could. And other than that, have a terrific rest of your Wednesday night. And once again, have a terrific Labor Day weekend. Caroline, anything to add?
Go Bills!
Go Bills, says Caroline. I couldn't put it better myself. Much love as always. Go Bills.